internet. Very interesting. Then Google just brought theirs out yesterday, and they had a little demonstration snafu. Only cost them $100 billion in paper value on the stock market as it crashed. It didn't crash, but it went down. Um, Recession talk is a little bit lighter right now. People are talking about a soft landing, so that might be true. Within our industry, things are starting, and I'm not going to say returning to normal, but it looks like we had some good spikes in November, December, and things are leveling out. The work environments are still battling on, whether it's going to be work from home, work from anywhere, remote work, hybrid, whatever. Commercial real estate's involved. Everyone's fighting over mind share and groundwork and everything. So interesting thing going on there, and that hasn't changed much in the last week. What else? I think the collaboration room is getting a little more buzz within the industry coming down from the OEMs. I think what happened, I believe we had a few earnings calls in the last 30 days or so, which, we'll talk to my guest about this. But they used to mean much more. I don't think they mean as much as we once thought they did. But let's move on. So I've got a very important, very interesting guest, a gentleman, and I've known him for a while, since the beginning, it seems, of MPS. And I don't know how we met, but we'll talk about that too. He is a stalwart in the industry. Held positions all over, up and down the spectrum, mostly up the spectrum. Won't steal his thunder. But whenever he and I get together and we talk, whether it's over the phone or a session like this or even at the bar over adult beverages, conversations always lead to technology and how they impact the businesses, our business, and as well as our customers' business. But without further ado, let me introduce Ed. Bring him in here. Let's get rid of this, and we'll see what we got going. Where's the loop? Hey, hey.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Ed.
How you
Good
doing?
morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Excellent. Oh, okay. So you heard my little intro. Why don't you, for people who don't know, and I don't, introductions are fine, but where you at right now? What did you do in the past? And give us the 15-second, and then I want to dive into chat, AI, copiers, printing, volumes, service, that kind of cool stuff. So who are
Where
you, Ed, and what do you
I'm
do?
at right now is Sean Cashmark and I, about almost 2.5 years ago, started a company called Predictive Insight, and it started on the premise of the EKM Insight DCA. I had saw some developments in that product that said it has the capability to do some things that other DCAs can't, and it puts a mechanism in place to help get somebody to predictive maintenance, which, as you know, has been
Oh,
a brainstorm of mine saying for the last maybe 10 years or so that I think that's really where the industry must get to. We have to get to the point where we're ahead of the curve, not just responding to the curve. And you need a certain amount of data points in order to get there. That product really has that capability to do it. On top of that, it really manages print same way you manage IT, moves and changes, things of that nature that other DCAs cannot. And it's built on a framework that is true enterprise framework. It's not a .NET framework. It is a Java 11 framework, and it just is much more robust and capable. And so that's where we launched it. And then we branched off into some e-commerce capabilities with Zero Code partner, and we're marching on. So right now, I'm happy. We ended the year 80% over the previous year. So
that's
I'm
good.
okay with that number. I was looking for 100%, but what the hell, it
Yeah.
was a little crazy. Uh, my past goes back to really almost the beginning of the industry. I've been in the industry in excess of 50 years now. I think it's somewhere 53 years or something like that. It started in 1969. Someone can do the arithmetic. I started in the computer business, oddly enough, with Univac as an accountant, and I was there for quite a few years in the international division of Univac.
Hmm.
Um, Back before you had actual keyboards put input into the computer, so it's at the beginning. Then I left there and went to 3M company. I was there for quite a few years and really enjoyed that experience. They're a stellar organization. but it became obvious to me that they weren't committed to this industry for good,
Mm.
solid reasons for themselves. But I thought that there was a better opportunity and branched out and went with a variety of different manufacturers at that time, kind of sampling some of the ones and probably learning more mistakes than anything else, which are good things to learn. So I spent some time with SCM, Saxon, and ended up at Canon, where I spent 13 years at Canon developing the national account division. And I ran the Rico operation, or the before that, the Duplifax operation when we acquired it at Canon. When I left there, I went to Rico to take over the direct operation and build that up through Savin. And after that, I went to Sharp, and
Mm.
I was at Sharp for 10 years as their CEO, and just loved it. I mean, it was a great company, great experience, and I've learned a ton of things along the way, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
that's
think that's when I met you. It was when you were either
I
with
was with
Sharp or just
I was
starting
with
out.
Sharp when we met,
Okay.
and we met through Mike Stramaglio.
Yeah, I figured it was Mike.
Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah.
right.
Well, okay, so that's great. You've got a great history and into the DCA EKM, which I'm familiar with, and I like that one. But boy, this whole artificial intelligence thing just kind of drops right into that right now.
It's going to be
So
it's going to be
yeah,
interesting. I mean, I see it as being a tool to help us support our industry. Um, there's a lot of things I like about it, and there's some things I'm not so crazy about with artificial intelligence.
so just give me a background real quick. What is your when did you rub up on it? How did you you're self-educated on the subjects like the rest of us. When did you start getting interested in it, or when did it pique your interest?
I had an
Prior to
interesting
this.
conversation one night with a
Hmm.
guy that technically I highly respect, and that was Steve Wozniak. And he and I got into a conversation about artificial intelligence. He is not a
Okay.
fan, by the way.
He's not a fan. Is that what
He
you
is
said?
not a fan. No,
Mm.
not at least not at that time. I don't. I haven't spoken to him in quite a few years, so I can't really say that he still
Okay.
feels this way. But he felt that it could lead to many wrong decisions because of other influences that are in there that it learns from. And he saw a lot of good things and capabilities in it, but he also um,
Yeah.
saw some things he didn't like about it. And one of the things I don't like about it is that it doesn't have, let's call it the creativity of a human. It can't question it. It doesn't really question things. It runs by rules, and by rules, I tend to see. You'll already see in Chat GPT. I always get that acronym's weird.
I always get it messed up.
I stumble over it every time. Uh, but I think you can see some political correctness in it. I There's nothing wrong with being polite. I think being polite is right, but I don't like think speak. Yeah, it reminds me too much of 1984. I don't want to get into that. I don't like being
Right.
politically correct, and I'm not. I mean, sometimes I'll say things provocatively just because I think the political correctness has gone too far.
Right.
I'll say
Right.
something to stir it up a little bit. Uh, but I think politeness and courtesy and all those things and being respectful are right. And we should be conscious of how we're reacting and saying things to other people, not to be insulting. But at the same time, you can't get to the truth by being too indirect, and you have to get
Right.
to the truth. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that political. I'm not sure that the artificial intelligence will help us delve into the truth. It takes the accepted. Uh,
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. So Chat is a generative artificial intelligence package, which means it conceivably doesn't grow, it regenerates itself based on all its inputs, right?
mhm.
All the questions, all the data. And right now, from what I understand, it's 179 billion data sets that it reads off of, which is and it's a closed database up to the year 2021. Um, but it did take in all of the all. I'm oversimplifying it, but it takes in consider all the content that's been created. Just, and I'm sure it's not, but
I
consider
have
it
to
that way.
oversimplify it because I don't know enough to really dig in that deep.
Okay, yeah, and I don't want to get too. But what's interesting is that it just came up this week, as a matter of fact, the
Mhm.
bias, quote unquote, bias of the system, and there were some pretty stark examples that would appear to be biased, and then when you peel it back a little bit more, because it is reading off information from media sources, it
Depends
may
on the
only
source.
reflect, yeah, a media
That was
source
Steve's
bias.
point. It all depends on the sources.
Right.
And his contention was you have to be careful of where the sources come from before you really decide that you really can trust the conclusions it comes to.
Right. So, I mean, right now, I use it. Well, it's a tool. It's just like any other tool. You've got to evaluate its outputs before it quote goes to market. Right. If you're going to build a car using robots, you've got to run it through and make sure that the final good is what you want it to be, what it should be. Right. It speaks that
Uh,
truth for that particular product.
That's an interesting point. I've had a little bit of experience with the manufacturing robots with my Canon experience, and not
Hmm.
designing them,
Oh.
but seeing them work.
Okay.
And there are multifunction robots, but you have to know exactly what you want them to do, and they do
Oh yeah.
exactly what you want them to do and nothing else.
Right. So if you're doing it, if you tell them to do something that's wrong, it's going to do it wrong
It's going to
over and
keep on
over and
doing it
over.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Now, and again, we're going real theoretical. In theory, generative AI should be able to learn from that mistake and recalculate if it's a process. That's another thing. It's like, I mean, we're getting in the weeds already, but the way I look at it is that anything that has a definable process can be replicated in a machine, in a system, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So you're right about the creativity, and I have a pretty stark example. But so if I am spreadsheet analysis of some sort of data, right? So there's a process of me collecting the data, putting it in the system, whatever, sorting the columns, applying formulas and all that stuff. And then taking that data, that's the information, quote unquote, that's generated off of that spreadsheet from my formulas, and then making some decisions on that data that's presented. That's all a process which can be quantified, duplicated, and then the system can learn that process.
Mhm.
And then 50 million other similar processes. And in theory, extrapolate the best process based on my inputs into the system.
Right.
That's how I look at it. So what I look at seriously is the most important point of that is the questions, is the prompt, is ask. It's like the robot. If you program it and it's off by a millisecond or whatever, it's going to do that. So you have to be very precise. I think that's the same with how you query the AI. You have to be precise to
When
get
we're
to that.
using AI in this sense, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
we don't. I hear these conversations all the time that AI will replace this, replace that, and it's going to replace some things.
Right.
But we have to look at it as a tool, not as a replacement. And as a tool, I think it's fascinating and it can do an awful lot of good and really help you through some backgrounds. But with that tool, then you can challenge some of the reasoning that maybe went into things and utilize it. It can help you with, for example, if you're using it for writing, it can help you for headlines and things like that, and maybe give you some overview or background. But you're the one that's got
It's
to come in with the real stuff.
it's the writing side is incredible, but I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, there's no more reason to have for a writer to sit in front of a blank screen and have writer's block.
But that's the hardest part. Now you've done some writing, and so have I.
It's
And
the
that
most
blank
difficult.
screen is the nightmare. I mean, I don't know how many times I'll rewrite that first sentence before I really get going.
It's incredible. So what I've learned since the beginning of December, end of November, is that to me seems to be the most relevant to me. Right? I mean, is relevancy right there. Now, having used, I mean, I've used it a lot, so I can almost spot the patterns that
Hmm.
that this particular AI spits out, which is okay. If you want an essay or copyright or something that doesn't have that much flavor to it, it's more factual. It's scary because it comes up with quote unquote ideas all on its quote own that that I don't think about. I say, holy cow, how did it do that? Well, it did. At first it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even think about that. You pulled
It's
that subject in all on
it's
your
just
own.
pulling out the data stored.
Right. So it is making some and I like to say recommendations, but and it's eloquent enough to be smooth and when you read it. But it is I believe the first step in it's an interface between the tool and the person writing it,
Hmm.
and using it to maybe clarify their ideas a little bit better in terms of articulating it. But it is strictly a tool, and so is the written word. I mean, the art of writing was being able to write with some flow and almost putting some engagement into it, when ultimately if a it didn't matter who, it doesn't really matter, all right, who does it. It matters what the interface between the reader and the content is. That's
Hmm.
where the point is. So I mean, we're way off there, but so what I've learned is rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. When you get stuck, I throw something out, it comes back. The challenge is now it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. Now you've got, in my opinion, so many new and different and well articulated ideas
How do you
that
put
you
them
could
all
go,
together
oh
in
yeah,
your
and
voice?
right, but that's where it comes in. That's where it should be. Your brain should be, that's where that missing link is
I
between
think
all this data.
you're exactly correct. For it can create a stimulus that can help
Yes,
enhance the creative aspect of communication. From
right,
that
and it's
standpoint, I really like it.
absolutely. I think about it as a slide rule or a calculator, right?
Hmm.
I didn't have to add anything. Now, of course, we can't add anymore, but there's also, we don't need to.
A lot
We're,
of us
we're, we're
can't write anymore either.
yeah, that's true. The handwriting isn't on the wall
Oh, they
anymore.
don't even teach that anymore.
No, and it's is it factually impactful or is it just nostalgia? I don't know. I mean, no one speaks Latin anymore. I
Well,
I, I don't know, but
some
yeah,
do.
yeah, true. Well, it's a dead language, I guess, whatever
It
that
is a
means.
dead language.
Yeah. But so if we boil it down to look at what we're doing right now in all the way down to the copier industry. On
Hmm.
my side, I've talked to a bunch of I had the honor of talking to some dealers about how this particular AI can help a sales rep in the trenches tomorrow, right? Or when he gets off the call with me. This is what you can do right now today. And it's, you can give it just the numbers after a print assessment and boom, it comes up with a 2-page, 3-page proposal already generated, well written with all your facts and even some other things you didn't think about right there ready for you to either sign and go or edit and move forward. So in that sense, when I look at it, we would have boilerplates, PowerPoints, Word docs that you could just feed in, and how comes your 23 pages of a proposal that is the same that you gave ABC company, and it has
Hmm.
all that baloney and crap. Um, but it does that, and it took all my numbers and just made a nice letter. There's also some things that you can do. Now the trick is the APIs and the connectivity to other applications, right? Just like everything else.
Right.
Um, but on your side of the service desk, let's put it that way, the help desk,
Hmm.
how can our industry really truly use it with some in your mind, in your in whether it's theoretical or whatever?
Well, then
Where do you see that
let's talk
helping?
more about AI itself that rather than chat.
Okay.
And in that case, keep improving the algorithms that analyze things that are going on in the devices to get us to a true predictive maintenance model. AI can be a tool in helping us do that. Machine learning is really critical to that, and there are some manufacturers that are
I was going to
attempting
ask. Yeah.
to do some things, and you know, I I'm not going to criticize them. I think that they're making a lot of progress, and but I think the whole idea is that for that to occur, you can get all the data points to help you, but you're going to have to put a process in place to make it work. And the process is more important. Well, that's not really true. You can't have the process without the information, but having the information is not enough to get it done. So of equal importance is the process, perhaps,
Mm.
to make sure that you exercise those things. And it's, you know, some people think, well, geez, I might use more parts than I would have normally used, or I may replace rollers a little bit too early, or I may do this, but you're going to save a boatload of time on, actual calls. And I saw an example of it early on, which was a very early adaptation uh, of doing predictive maintenance when Leo Benetti owned Flowtech. And what he and his staff had done is put together a program that utilized as much data as they could and brought it together and put a good solid process in place. And they reduced their emergency calls by 50%.
Mm.
And they increased their calls per tech just dramatically. And they got
Right.
things done overnight. And the reaction to their accounts is they were virtually when they got into an account, they were almost impossible to displace because they seemed to be an important part of the process. And one of their customers, when I was doing some due diligence on them, one of their customers told me that he said, I'll never replace them. He said, they've reduced my help desk calls by better than 60%. And I said, how in the world is that? He said, they've almost completely eliminated all my printer help desk
Right.
calls. And they personally got me a raise. He said, but don't tell them that. Uh,
Well, that's
and
fine. Yeah.
yeah, I
You
mean,
engage them. Yeah.
it getting closer to the account is really where we have to be. And all the digital transformation that we're talking about is critical to help us get there.
Right.
Uh, we've become so transactional since the mid 1980s that a whole generation of people in the industry were brought up and raised on that transactional process and have lost the art of account management and account development
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
industry. I think it's starting to come back in a few places, but it's critical going forward because we're going to be so we are already are commoditized. Much of it we did to ourselves, and the rest of it is just falling into habits as a consequence of what was around us at the time.
Right. And it was successful. I mean, literally, if you think
Oh,
about it,
you know, I would fuss about it over the years. I mean, since it changed, I just thought, you know, we're making a mistake, but it's hard to tell someone that's making a lot of money that they're making a mistake.
right.
And the fact of the matter is, this industry is a very profitable industry, and it could be even more profitable than it is if we didn't lose some of the hard work aspects of it and didn't become so transactional and refined our processes a little bit better. Uh,
Right.
one of the reasons, actually, I had a conversation with Wes McCarter, and he pointed out that some of the people that he sees in this industry try to transition to other industries that they feel are parallel, but those industries don't offer the same amount of gross profit, which means that they have a hard time making the transition because they can't incorporate the same mistakes over there. That industry won't
Ooh.
tolerate it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good point.
and so, yeah, it was an enlightening point. And I mean, I think I had lived on the outskirts of that point, but I never really crystallized it the way that he did. And I thought, geez, that is so spot on because there could be another 10 points of profitability in our industry if we did things right. And in the course of what we've been doing over the last 2.5 years,
Mm.
Sean and I, we've uncovered that there are broken down processes that people consider to be workflow, and they're really not workflow.
Mm.
They're workarounds.
Oh.
And one of the things that I've said that actually said it recently at the ECS. So they were talking about simplifying and making the digital transformation, and of course you have to use on the cusp AI and other technologies to get there. And they said, well, where do you begin to look? And I just kind of raised my hand and said that any process that you see that has a spreadsheet associated with it is the beginning of the problem. That's where
Okay.
your problems are.
All right.
100.
Wait. Perfect. Now, why? What is what? What?
because you're now manualizing the automated process. You're calling it a process. All you're doing is collecting stuff and putting it in spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are not automation. Spreadsheets are used for calculations and things of that nature.
Right.
People give you a spreadsheet, and it's amazing to see people re-enter things in spreadsheets and they call it automation. It's not automation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's wow.
It's not
Yeah.
automation. We have so many processes in our industry
Right.
that are nowhere near automation. They are electrified mechanical processes.
Good point. So what you're saying is, let me see if I can connect those dots. If we optimize those processes truly, whatever that is, it's not
Let
mechanical. It
let
turns it
let
that
the let the
that
data work for us. Let the software and the algorithms work for us and give us the answers.
and that would decrease the costs and thereby increase the margin back up. And is it fair to say, oh, this is a big one, that you could see a 10% delta if you optimized and put your mechanical processes
Yes,
in
I think you
something
can.
else? Yeah.
I think you can. And there's those that resist the change because they feel that this improving of process means elimination of jobs. And yes, it can.
It
But
can, but
it can. It depends on the upper management of the company. But it can also mean you can take more business with less restaffing or adding staff, becoming more productive. And I mean, the way to really look at it is how do I use this increased productivity to take on more base? Because
right.
you're not going to grow at the rate of the industry. You're going to grow at the rate of the decrease of your competition. You've got to. It's the
Oh yeah. Yeah.
it's the Genghis Khan method of marketing. You have to kill somebody in order to win.
Yeah, there's no new, yeah,
No,
you're
no
right.
new ground. You have to win at somebody else's expense. End of conversation.
Right. And right. So, wow. So we if we truly optimize our internal processes, gain that extra whatever margin is there. Now our cost model is static and stable ish, right? It's
Mhm.
stable. So now if we increase the revenues, it's only going to increase, the profit margin.
Everything falls to the bottom
Everything.
line.
Right, right. Everything comes to the bottom line. But you swerved in, not swerved, but you talked about something interesting there, the Genghis Khan. Yeah, there's no new prints, no new volumes being discussed. It's shrinking. So we're fighting for a slice of the shrinking pie. This is a visionary question, and I know you've been asked this, but where are the other greenfields? Assume that we've optimized our processes now. We've not tapped out, but we've got now. Where do we aim this really well-run ship into a different ocean? Where's our new business? Where can it come from? In
You
wide
know,
open. Are we
everybody
selling
has
space shuttles?
maybe if you
Yeah.
know enough about space shuttles. The bottom line is this: it's in the services. First of all, let me just digress a little bit and make it simple.
Yeah.
It's in services. Now, there are those that will beat the drum and say IT services or content services, or let's just call it office services. But in the world of services, it's a knowledge based business. So I'll say this: what do you know? What are you comfortable with? What are you an expert at? What can you do
Mm-hmm.
better to take that off the plate of your customer? And if you can find a way to take something off their plate to make their job easier, to make their company more efficient, that's an opportunity for profitability and growth. So we're in the office services business, and there's those that are doing meeting rooms,
Right.
utilizing some of the technologies available now. I think that's a great opportunity if you have the knowledge and you have the capability and you have the ability to bring it to market. You can't just venture off into thing that happens to be vogue. That's dangerous because you may not have enough knowledge base. And I've been suggesting for a long time to partner with people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a school out there that challenges me on this, and they have their legitimate points. I'm not going to debate that they're not, but I think that you have to learn before you can leap into it. They may have I think the people that think you just buy somebody and bring them in, or you just dive right into an industry, I think you're diving into a pool without knowing the depth. And you really need to understand it a little bit more before you dive into it. So, partnering up with
Mhm.
people, learning things, finding out what works for you, what fits your culture, and what you can mix well with your existing organization, because culture and chemistry are critical to every company.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so the way I look at what's happening now is if we take in the fear of COVID, work from home, possible recession, the war, all the stuff that happened in the last 2 years prior to this AI thing, and now we've got the AI thing that is at least stirring up interest. But back to your, get to know you, you need to educate yourself. I think there's an on ramp with the up and coming AI thing. I
Oh,
think there
yeah.
is. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I think learning can be accelerated now because
Yeah,
of these things.
I hear professors and teachers. The first people that started to whine were those guys, and I get it. When the calculators came out, so many people said, "Nope, can't bring the calculator in." And then what? 4 years later, yep, bring your calculators in, trig, all that stuff.
I was really
So
pissed off because by the end of senior year, you're allowed
yeah,
to
I
use
know,
a calculator, and I was really pissed. What
I
happened to the
know.
other 3 years?
Those kids now they get it easy. so, um, but yeah, I think that this convolutions, the convergence of all these external things. Two things. When we would talk convergence, it would always just be in the industry. Remember when we were talking about Xerox and HP getting together? That was the big thing, right? And then we had what was that guy that came in and he was the oh, geez, he
Icon,
bought
Carl.
all. Yeah, he came in. So there's an external force that came into our industry and it's like, ooh, what's going on? But we were kind of didn't realize it then. We were all in a silo in a vacuum. I think what happened in the last 36, 48 months blew all those silos away because now everyone is
I
talking the
I was
same
hysterical at
language.
silos to start with. I mean, I just
Right.
very honestly, when everybody was all upset about Carl Icahn coming in, oh, what does this mean? So it simply means the same thing it always means when Carl Icahn comes
Yeah.
in. It's a poorly run company that he thinks has a value, and he can fix the way it's run to make more money. It's just nothing really complex about this. The same thing with wars and recessions and inflation and interest rates. You know, I just find the whole thing just downright hysterical. Do you really think we just found something new? I mean, come on.
Well, not to seem mean or rude, but when I hear people whining about the layoffs, it's like, well, this has got to be the third batch of layoffs that I can remember. Maybe not in tech, but the auto industry, they got destroyed back in the 70s and
Yeah.
80s. There's always been something. And you guys got laid, 100,000 here. Oh yeah, that's rough. That's tough, but it's happened before. It's not the end of the world.
And
And
there's things to learn from history to overcome these problems. There's
right.
degrees of things. The fact of the matter is, we've had a very long run
Mm.
of
Mm-hmm.
wonderful economic news that has almost been unprecedented in history.
Well, yeah. I mean, even after World War II, it wasn't this good.
It
I
was
mean,
good,
we're
but
we're,
not.
co-
I
we're
mean, this.
complaining about interest rates at 5%. Remember the 70s and the 80s, the Carter years. This I started getting deja vu when Russia invaded the Ukraine. I go, wait a minute, something. Wait, this has happened before. It's like, hold on.
Yeah,
Did
this is
did
not.
Iran take our hostages again? Where are we at? What's going on?
Uh, as spy planes and balloons and everything else.
Spy planes and
I mentioned General
oil.
Powers to somebody the other day, and they said, "Who's that? Who's that?" And I went,
Yeah,
"Oh
never
no."
mind. But that's what happens, and it's like,
Uh,
okay, it, we move ahead decades and end up only moving ahead a few inches. It's really kind of weird.
well, we have to go. You often have to go back
Yeah,
and regroup and restep. The things
yeah,
that are coming. Look, they're going to be difficult to weather,
sure.
and we've got the conditions that we work in are a little bit different today, and some of the expectations are different. Expectations change a lot of things. So I don't really want to overly mock the
Yeah,
recession and stuff. I just want to put it in perspective. I mean, we see a recession coming. people are talking about it being a few weeks ago, it was going to be very, very deep. Now there's a talk that it could be a lot less. Um, Here's the fact: change is constant no matter what it is. Good times change, bad times change, everything changes. Conditions keep moving,
Hmm.
and there is nothing on earth that's completely new.
Well, which goes right back into the chat AI, the AI thing, right?
It's
Well, it
another
can't.
tool. It's a
It's a
better
tool.
than we had before.
It's a better, faster, more comprehensive, bigger tool than we had before. But
Yeah.
I always go back to this: the best tool that we have is between our ears, and this falls
Mhm.
into now they're talking about. Now, this is a strong word, but censoring or ethical AI, which sounds
That
good.
to me is immediately I that I despise.
I don't like it at all. It's like, are
I
you kidding me?
I don't
Yeah,
like the mince words. I despise it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I it comes down to the choice of what I want to say. I don't want someone else to make that choice for me. All right. If it's neo-Nazi, and it's just a dumb example, but if I don't want to read about or know about it, I'm not going to look it up. But if there's something happening and I want to look up and I want to get informed on it, I want it to be as raw as possible so I can make my own decision about it.
I
And maybe I'll get it filtered after, right? After I dig in and go, well, I wonder what these people think about
I'd
it.
rather
Then,
filter myself and realize I'm
right.
wrong.
Do you think that that's a societal thing? Do you think that,
Becoming so. We can't
yeah.
look at both sides of the coin anymore. So we don't look at ourselves and finding out what's wrong. We don't see ourselves making mistakes. I I don't believe in that. I think everybody has the right to be wrong and should be wrong and be making mistakes on a pretty regular basis. It tells me they're moving forward and they're thinking. I don't
Right.
feel the same way about everything on earth that I did when I was 18. Trust me, a whole bunch is different in how I think and how I approach things. And if I
Yes.
didn't, and that came from self criticism, it came from looking at things from both sides. And I remember when I was in school, because I had the Jesuits that they and Christian Brothers,
Whoa.
we never were allowed to take one particular position. In
Hmm.
fact, if you had to argue a point, you got to argue your point from your perspective. Then the next day, you had to argue it from the other side.
Ed, this is a great example. I remember this. I don't know why I remember it, but it came ninth grade debate class. You had to have it. First of all, you had to have it, right? It was no,
Mhm.
everyone hated it. You're a kid. You don't want to get up in front of talk about anything, right? So, and these were back when the subjects were save the whales, no nukes, euthanasia with Ann Quinlan. I think she was
Yeah,
what euthanasia. There
right.
was stuff like that, right? And literally, you walk into the class. Okay, here are the subject we're going to debate today. You have 20 minutes to prepare. That was it. And
Mhm.
you didn't know what side you were going to fall on until you walked up to the podium.
Right.
The teacher said, "You're pro," and you're no, you yeah, you guys reverse it, and then you get a few minutes to collect your thoughts. Boom, go. Now, I didn't know it at the time. It was horrifying. I mean, it was terrible. It's like, Jesus, I don't know.
Well,
I don't want to get up and
it was
talk.
the best. Those were the best learning experiences on earth, and they're gone today. And they're gone in the Ivy League universities. They're
Oh,
gone, and it's just a shame because what we're doing to this generation is shameful.
it's done. I think.
I don't care what side you come down on,
Oh
what
yeah,
opinion you come down on. I just want you to get there through the truth and through facts that you see. And I guarantee you, you will change over time.
right,
Winston Churchill once said that if you weren't a liberal when you were young, you didn't have a heart. If you weren't a conservative when you were older, you didn't have a brain.
right. But
So it just showed that everybody can change.
everybody does change. The
They do
'60s,
change.
the hippies of the '60s were the yuppie. You know what I mean? There was just
Yeah.
they, and that's another reason I don't like Meta, Facebook, or Alphabet, Google. When they went to market, well, more Google. Google's what first they almost said that first do no harm. Remember,
Mhm.
whatever they're very idealistic, hippified, cool, whatever it was back in the day. We're going to be all employee based with this. Well, they lost their way a long time ago, and their core is rotten relative to what they wanted to be. They've become what they thought they were fighting, and
Well,
that
they're trying
happens
to
all the
control,
time.
and that is the problem. The problem is that control. No, if history taught us anything, that control doesn't work.
No. It
and let things be merit based and nothing else but merit based.
Right. Which now, but that
Nothing
even
else.
flows into work from home versus work in the office, right? It wasn't what I saw or what I think is, I've walked into businesses, and I'm sure you've done the same thing. You got a presentation. This is pre-COVID. Sit in the lobby, receptionist, wait in the lobby, walk into the big executive boardroom, wait for 12 people to show up, go through the ceremony, make your presentations, come back, blah, blah, blah. I'm in the parking lot going, how the hell does anything get done in that business? There's 400 people in that office, and I don't know what they do, right? There's guys out back making stuff. They're doing stuff. But
Hmm.
why do you need. So, what I think happened with work from home, especially with work from home, is it illuminated the redundancy and the focus on process versus the focus on outputs, especially when it comes to office work, quote unquote, moving paper from
Hmm.
one side of your desk to the other side of your desk. It wasn't important that I closed 600 whatever cases or checks. It was, how did I do it? Did I adhere to the process? And your review is, well, let's see, we put up these 6 things that you needed to accomplish from our last review. Did you achieve them? Well, yeah. The deliverables disappear. We were more focused on process, and then throw in the cover your ass process and the whole thing, the whole get a
Hmm.
promotion by who you know, what not what you know, all that stuff became illuminated when everyone went home and work still got done and deliverables were still done and no
There is a
businesses
question.
incredible.
Many will argue that a lot of the work didn't get done, and
Right.
didn't get done as well. And I think I don't come down on work at home is better or going to the office is better. I come down to certain things that can be done remotely and can be done remotely better than they can, and certainly like we're doing here. I mean, we could take a plane, get in one place, and be together, or we could do this
Right.
over the web. So there's things that can be done very effectively in a virtual way, but you have a hard time building a company's culture when everybody's remote, and culture is critical to success. So I think there's a mixed bag of this, and we're going to need to find, as we always have to do, we have to find balance. There's never anything that one side is the way it's going to go. No, there'll be a molding of things, and really should take the best of both of them and bring them together to create a new culture or a new methodology of going about doing
Well,
business.
that's the key there. So yes, the culture issue is an issue unless remote is your culture. And then I'm not saying
Well, that could
100%
be,
one way or the
for
other, but
example, that's the way our company is.
right,
We're
right.
100% virtual. I mean, Sean's in Idaho and I'm in Charlotte. So, um, and we have our accountants in Ohio, and
Oh
uh,
yeah.
we have support people in North Carolina, and I have one support person in England.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
we can't go get the. It's a big commute for us to get to one place.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. And again, with AI coming into play and minimizing or maximizing processes, manual processes, eliminating
But
that.
you can build a virtual culture as long as, but in a bigger company, it's harder to do.
I agree. Well, here's I agree, but I also think in the SMB that face
Mhm.
to face culture is a little bit more important. But there's a whole other issue there. The large corporation culture is it's an issue because it was flawed in the beginning, but that's the way we did it, right? We built skyscrapers so that people would come in and work in those skyscrapers. They weren't designed for anything else but for people to be in them,
I
right?
once had a professor that ended up becoming a friend, and he said to me that you will find that corporations are the largest dysfunctional families in the world,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and they are. It's absolutely true. I mean,
Wow. Yeah, if you think about it, because families are I've had my share, but you're right. There's going to be the crazy uncle. There's going to be
Oh
the
yeah,
the wayward nephew. There's going to be all that
all that
stuff.
stuff is in there. The backstabber, the liar, the this, the that, the drunk, the this, well,
Right,
the whole
right.
nine yards, you know.
Yeah, that's
And you get
interesting.
them all in the company. There's no getting around it.
So, where do you? I think I might have asked this already, but do you see anyone in our industry right now totally embracing this whole AI thing and
No,
looking at because I do, but they're not in the industry. It's like, ooh, okay,
no, you. I'm answering your question, which do you always say anyone in our industry? No,
no,
no. I mean, I see people in our industry dabbling in it,
dabbling.
and uh, and it's okay to dabble. I mean, and I certainly wouldn't put myself into any other than a dabbling. Also, to be very candid with you, I mean, I look at certain aspects of it and see where we can use it and encourage our people to do more with their algorithms and try to get into more machine learning and try to do more things to help us solve problems and make things more productive for dealers out there so that they can become more profitable. But um,
Yeah,
we're on the very
the
verge.
razor's edge.
And
Yeah,
you know, I have a good friend of mine. Actually, I thought about inviting him into this conversation because I know
sure,
where this would go, but didn't really have. I didn't really have time to do that, and I didn't want to do that to you. Just
that's
all of a
fine.
sudden have someone else show up here to throw in a conversation. But he's an incredibly creative guy, and he does stuff with metaverse.
He
And
does.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, he's really into it. I mean, he was. I mean, they're doing a lot of really interesting things with the metaverse. And obviously, he's really on top of AI and all that stuff at the same time. And I said, "What do you think this has to do with the print industry?" And he started laughing. Uh, and I said, I agree with you. I said, but I think it can help in supporting or developing better processes in the industry. So from that standpoint, yes. So from that
Yeah.
standpoint, AI matters and can help any industry
Right.
develop better processes if properly used as a tool and not as a crutch or looking at it. If you look at it from a standpoint like this is going to replace this or replace that, you're going to get in trouble. First of all, AI is still young in its development. I mean, it's been going on for a long time. I mean, the concept of AI has been around for better than 20 years.
Oh, for yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, machine learning, even all the way back to the very beginning.
yeah,
Um, with what's his name and his code breaking, and even
right.
Babbage, and it was yeah,
Yeah,
just
it's been
evolved
around a
into.
long time, but it's
Mhm.
it's putting things together and it's starting to show some real opportunity to really be a tool. It
What
also
I've
shows
Yeah, go
danger.
ahead.
Uh, people can people can control thought, and to me, there's no more dangerous thing to control than thought.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. Ultimately, we are in control of our own, but that's a
Well, it
whole
should
nother
be.
session. Yeah,
We
we should
should
be.
be, but I'm not sure everybody
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, it goes back. I back to the original. It's the output from the AI is important, but the question is even more important. Our ability. So that's what even going back to the students. Right now, is our goal to have a student learn about the subject, or is our goal? And I'm not saying it shouldn't be have the student learn and articulate his or her ideas so that everyone understands. I would say it's both, but I would also say that if we have a tool like AI that can help them research beyond the Encyclopedia Britannica and whatever, and our goal is to have them learn that, it does. They're going to learn it just by going through those motions. Now, if we
University used to be to get you to think.
right,
I don't believe that university is there to get you to think any longer. I
well,
think it's there to teach to tell you what to think.
it's evolved from I mean it's the old spelling test, it's the old math, it's the old read learn by rote, that is established early on in the education system. No one knows who Socrates is or the Socratic process or how to question and question and question, and that's where I really think, if I don't know how, but if that teaching people how to use AI may be the most important thing to do, which teaches them how to critically think. All
Hmm.
right. Consider your questions and then question your questions before you pose it. Right. Then you're internally here. And when it comes back, guess what? You can either make a judgment, that does make sense. That is relevant, but I'd say it this way. Do it that to me is better education than anything else. But going back to Socrates, which is incredible, but that's, we don't critically think. We don't teach people how to critically think, or it's very, very, very rare. I guess that's probably better off to say that. And then
We're living
the
in a
people,
soundbite world, and a lot of
yeah,
people don't go beyond the soundbite,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, what I was going to talk about is I've run into a few companies, who's adapting this, who's looking at this and saying, we got to change or we've got to jump on this quote AI train. And I'm sure you've been there too. There's the tech du jour. There is is it marketing or is it real? There's this hot cold thing that comes and goes. MPS went through it. I'm sure the analog to digital conversion went through it. Black and white to color. It's the best thing ever. You got to get in on it. Well, there's still black and whites. The best thing. I don't think there's any more analogs, but um, so AI could suffer from that, like in our industry, because we're very dubious. But what I've seen in the last couple months is these software companies, and they're smaller software companies, right? So they're a little more agile,
Hmm.
but they're on the sales side, right? So they're the guys that can help you, whatever, contact 10,000 leads, work in a marketing campaign through HubSpot, LinkedIn, all this blah, blah, blah stuff, right? That we would have departments. Well, I think four companies now, like 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 a Salesforce, but not Salesforce or a sales chain, right? That had AI on their whiteboard, but it was Q4 or next year. They've
Hmm.
all brought it forward. They've all went from no, now it's Q1 of this year because of the API. And I don't know that much about APIs. I should, but I don't. But that's the real when you can hook your process into someone else's data and then combine it with the AI, open AI thing, now you've got something. And I see people jumping all over that. And I see some who aren't, right? I mean, you've got,
Yeah,
if we look at I mean, not to pick on them, but I don't think anyone over at eAutomate is looking at this,
they don't
which,
have open APIs.
yeah, okay. And they're not going to develop AI either, right? So
Yeah,
that's the other thing. So
that I have no idea what's on their block,
you,
but they don't have any open APIs, and they don't want any open APIs.
right.
So
So
they're. I think that's some of the people there would probably disagree with me, but I think it holds them back.
it certainly will now. Absolutely. Like I
Like,
said, they're not going to develop their own AI. They could go out and rent or lease whatever Chat GPTs, just like everyone else can do that. But there's no development in there. They can try and develop in it, and they're going to be. When I say they, I'm not specifically pointing out that. Let's put people who are in that subject going, we're good, we're closed, we're fine. That's not going to work anymore because the rest of the world, data used to be king, or my data used to be king because I've got the data that nobody else has. That's what used to be. Well, now everyone else is going to have 10 times more data than yours. And guess what? It's going to be up to date as in 2 hours ago. And it's going to
mhm.
be available. And you've got Joe Blow in a garage somewhere, with an AI tool that is just kicking your ass on generating financials, generating costs, all the stuff that we do on a day, it takes us a week to compile or whatever, and we need to get the data out of that particular application. It's available right now. And I get to compare it to what everyone else has done in the last
Mhm.
50 years. So, and another thing, I go extreme with what I see, but this one feels like it's not a 30-year, 5 year. This, I think, is that off and on switch. I think there's something here that is like, it's going to literally be last year we didn't have AI. This year, everyone's got it. Like that kind of thing. And it's
It
just,
isn't whether they have it;
well,
it's how they use it.
right. That's what I meant. It's not going to take a decade for it to evolve into every household
No,
and every business.
Well,
It's going to take a
there's some
lot
people will
less.
use it really well,
Hmm.
and they'll gain a huge competitive advantage because they have, and others will fumble around with it and use it as a play toy or use it to try to do things and get themselves in a bind,
Right. Right.
just like they did with every other transition.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean,
And I
on a much smaller scale, you've seen other transitions go exactly the same way.
Yep. I believe that, and that's a model. To me, I'm just looking at the condensed time, and I could be totally off. I don't know. I don't, but and that's fine. I don't care to know. I love to find out, just like everyone else, hopefully. But yeah, interesting. So I guess the bottom line when it comes to our industry is DCAs. We're going to still be collecting data the same way and throwing them in the spreadsheets, and somehow
Well, we
trying to
don't have to
move.
necessarily just throw them in a spreadsheet. They
Yeah.
can actually function with other software to actually finish tasks. We
So
do
tell
that
me
now.
about your your specific solution. All
Hmm.
right. So what I understand and along that talk track, right? So it's digitizing processes, and I like what you said that a spreadsheet is not a it's not automation. So does your
Spreadsheets for
package?
report. We
What's
use
that?
spreadsheets for reports.
Okay. So what's going on, but before it becomes a report?
Well, now you get a notification for, let's say, supplies are down
Okay.
on a
Right.
particular machine. So you get the notification. Now you can click on a button, see if there's anything else related to that machine that might be in a similar case, and you can analyze whether you want to put it together or not. And you can actually enter the order into the system and track the order to its conclusion
Okay.
without ever taking it out of the system. Just click, click, click. It's a couple mouse clicks and you're in business. And you can track it by sales rep, the account. You can, if you send it at Federal Express, you get the Federal Express tracking number, you get the signatures, the whole 9 yards. And nothing came out, went into a spreadsheet, went into something else, got handled by this, got handled by that group, analyzed by this. It's all inside the system. If you get a notification that something needs to be replaced because it hit a trigger, but you look at all the other, because you're looking at multiple data points. You look at another data point, say, well, we really don't need that yet. We can put that in a query section and just leave it there, and it'll come. We can query it and go back to it and manage it on our own without being inundated with multiple warnings of multiple notifications. Once the notification happens, it
Right.
puts the work process in place. It doesn't keep pinging you every
Okay.
time someone made a print when it's slow print.
Right.
So the intelligence of the device of the DCA needs to be such that it helps you improve your workflow. Now, there's other things that are being done too with remote service and things of that nature, and there's a HP has done a good, I think, had done a really good job with SDS, and
What is SDS? What does that mean?
SDS is smart smart digital services or smart document
Okay.
services or something like that, and it is the ability to remote start the machine, upgrade firmware,
Right.
um, things of that nature. It monitors the fusers and rollers and various things that can have sensors on it to let you know that you have to replace. They're going to be replaceable in the next 90 days, 30 days. What the percentages of decline is going to be, and it's gotten smarter and smarter over time using AI.
Okay.
Um, and
Is,
there's
is
other ways to do that. And one of our competitors, actually two of our competitors, have that across every manufacturer. We have not implemented that yet. And the reason is that I'm not happy with the security standards on it. I don't like, and I'm speaking personally now, I'm not
right.
being
Right.
critical. It's just my personal opinion and why we've decided to do what we're going to do. And we're going to go about it a different way. And I would say we're 98% there. Probably by mid year, we'll have an answer to that, which will be rock solid secure. And
So
I,
let me ask you:
I
is it
don't like
difficult?
anything getting in.
How difficult is it to go from platform from manufacturer to manufacturer? I thought that was almost impossible. So
It's not quite. It's not
okay.
really impossible. No,
Okay.
nothing. Really, nothing is impossible.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it was hard enough just to monitor internal, you know, all the Ricos, let
Mhm.
alone Ricos, Konicas, and all the other stuff and Lexmarks and things like
With
that.
the digitalization of the
Yeah.
devices, they all have hard drives. And you're really getting into the EULA
Okay.
of the machine itself. That creates problems. I mean, just by me saying that, you say, "Uh-oh, wait a minute, where are you going?" It's not a MIB walk. That's something
Right.
else. And the MIB walk, rock solid, it's secure, it's locked down, only getting certain types of information, and you've got to be really careful when you're going into embedded web services. And
Mm.
I see, my opinion, I think there's some mistakes being made, and I'm not alone, by the way. I think there's a lot of people tend to agree with me. You got to be
So you're saying that
really,
mistakes
really
are being made
careful.
or leaving open doors for security. That's where you're really.
Oh, you
That's your.
absolutely are. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
it's not just an open door. It's a truck wide tunnel,
Mm.
two lanes maybe.
Mm. Interesting. Well, that's very interesting. Okay, so your system, um, does it integrate with a help desk? I mean, I'm asking a nuts and bolts kind of question, but I understand the DCA reading off the machines, but how about service desk calls, help, end user
Well, I mean,
interface?
it's coming back and it's giving information to the ERPs,
Okay,
and you know, uh, we do
so it
integrate
sends to the.
with some CRMs um, to help do some costing calculations and things like that, and giving them data and information to help them do some analysis. But um, I guess the information that is coming out can go directly to a help desk, but that's not
That's
particularly
not.
complicated once
Oh,
you
okay,
get the information into the company.
okay. Um, how's business going? I mean, you said you were 80%.
80% year over year. So
Well, maybe it's too late to start this, but so how are you going to market? Are you positioning with distribution? Are you going through resellers? What's your channel? How does that work?
um, it's us directly
Okay.
interfacing with a variety of different dealers. We do have some larger organizations that have grasped us as a standard. Clover, for example, uh,
Okay.
TD Synnex is
Right.
uses us not exclusively. They also have arrangements with other DCAs, but they're very, we work very close with them. We work very close with Clover, um, but the vast majority of our business is independently with individual dealers.
Okay. All right.
Today, there's 600. I think as of yesterday, Sean
Mm-hmm.
corrected me. There's 629 dealers that are utilizing our software.
Do you have a
Started with four
what's
in 2020.
what's the persona? 50 million and above, or
Oh,
250 million
yeah,
below?
and I think we did the right thing with this. We started out with smaller dealers.
Yeah.
I
Good.
mean, and we didn't try to go for the home runs. Um, but along the way, some pretty good sized dealers got involved even early on. And in some cases, we don't have 100% of their business. In some cases, we do a specific piece of their business. But the interesting thing is, where that happens, we seem to be growing in share. And once the upper management gets to see the process change that can happen, it gets another level of embracing.
Green lighted
And
it all
there's
the way up.
resistance
Yeah.
to change. I mean, changing something like a DCA, it's not as bad as changing an ERP, but there's some work involved,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to be able to justify solving some problems. So clearly, I will say 629 dealers saw that there was a way to solve the
Right.
problem.
Right. Right. Forgot about the DCA thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Then, last thought. What do you want to leave as a thought here today for the industry in general? Not specific to AI, but maybe whatever for the next 2 years. I was going to say five, but we don't know what next
I'm
going to
going to
happen.
leave a thought forever.
Okay.
There is no finishing line.
Yeah.
You've got to
Excellent.
keep moving. You've got to keep changing. And just because an industry is in maturity or decline in its uses doesn't mean it's dead. And it just means it has to be approached differently. So forget about getting to this point and arriving. You'll never arrive. There is no finishing line. Keep moving.
Great. Good point. Excellent. Thanks, Ed. Well, I appreciate the time.
I've
Actually,
had a lot
this
of
is
fun.
really good.
Great conversation.
Yeah, this is good conversation.
It's too early for the bourbon, so.
Well, unfortunately, yes, it is, but I'm just kidding. We did a bourbon one last Friday. It was another 3-hour session.
Well, that would if we had a bourbon, it would probably be a 6-hour session. Let's not do that.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Ed, we're going to call it a day. Thank you very, very much once again. And if you're listening, reach out to myself or Ed if you want to get together, move forward. But we're signing off for today. All right, man. Take it easy.
Take care.
I was out with the boys catching up in a neon light. Didn't know till we walked in, it was karaoke night. She was in a circle of girls chasing a shot with a lime. She was laughing, they were daring her to get on the mic.